If you hate pizza, then turn this video off right now. And if you're hungry, I would recommend getting a snack before you come back to watch the rest of it. Follow my instructions to make a pizza. To get started, you're going to need the ingredients here. 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, salt, 3/4 cups of water, a tablespoon of olive oil, a can of pizza sauce, mozzarella cheese, fresh oregano, and pepperoni. After you've got all this, make sure you get a kitchen with an oven and preheat that oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. You're going to need a liquid measuring cup, a large mixing bowl, wooden spoon, a cup and 1/2 cup dry measure, tablespoon and teaspoon measure, rolling pin, pizza cutter, and a pizza tray or baking sheet. Alright, now let's get started. Mix your 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour and 3 teaspoons of baking powder in a large mixing bowl. Just follow along with what I'm doing. I worked at Mod Pizza for 2 summers, so I'm pretty qualified in this field. I want to show everyone that it is possible to make a good pizza at home without the high skill demand needed. So for that reason, we are going to be making a yeast-free pizza dough today. That's a dough that doesn't rise, and it is much easier to make at home with little baking experience. Furthermore, we're going to rely on science. Forbes wrote about Tony Gamignani, one of the world champion pizza makers who's one of the most decorated pizza chefs of all time. He led a pizza masterclass in which he reminded the audience that you need to, quote, cook according to your own abilities. At Mod Pizza, I assembled pizzas, but I never actually made dough. I always struggle with that, which is why I'm cooking to my abilities and making yeast-free dough. After mixing your dry ingredients, mix a tablespoon of olive oil with 3/4 and 2 tablespoons of water, and then slowly add it to your dry ingredients, mixing as you go. This is probably the hardest part of the whole thing. What you want to avoid is adding too little water or too much water. So just keep slowly adding it as I'm doing. Eventually, I'm going to lose this spoon and just go in with my hands. Make sure you roll up your sleeves. You can get a nice ball of dough with just your hands, as you're going to see in a minute here. I want to say I got this recipe from Gemma's Bigger, Bolder Baking. It's a very comprehensive guide on how to make this no-rising yeast-free pizza dough. Make sure to go back and check this website because it's got a full list of ingredients, all your measurements, and all the steps. I'm making sure to follow this recipe very closely. You might see a couple times in the video I dip out to check the recipe. That's because following the recipe is going to help you make a perfect pizza. Here I've got my completed ball of dough, and now we're going to go on and roll it out. So make sure you've got a workspace that's nicely floured. Put flour down onto the space you're going to be rolling it so that your dough doesn't stick. You're going to want to avoid adding too much flour. Again, you don't want your dough to be too dry, but you're also going to want to avoid letting it get stuck down to your surface because that's going to make it very hard to do the next step, which is transferring your dough to the pizza tray. I put olive oil on mine to add a little bit of flavor and make sure that nothing gets burnt onto the bottom. So after you transfer your rolled out dough to the pizza tray, it's about 12 inches across, you're going to start applying your toppings. First is tomato sauce, which I am applying liberally. The toppings, there's no real specific measurements as it's all individual tastes. For this pizza, I chose mozzarella cheese. Mozzarella cheese is the go-to cheese for pizza making as it melts very easily and is nice and gooey and stretchy. Something I forgot to mention in the section of this video where I told you what you're going to need to make it is a tool like a fork, or I use a pasta spoon to perforate your dough. Perforating your dough puts holes in it, which prevents bubbles from forming when you're baking your pizza. Add your pepperonis and put it in the oven for 15 minutes. The oven is where the magic happens. As I mentioned, the science behind pizza making is one of the reasons why pizzas are so good. American Chemistry Society explained in The Chemistry of Pizza Making how, quote, when the Maillard reaction happens at temperatures above 140 degrees Celsius, sugars react with amino acids to create flavor compounds that give food a distinct, bold, cooked flavor, end quote. It happens to toppings, sauce, cheese, and crust, so as long as you remember to cook your pizza, you can't possibly fail. Now, you'll see I'm putting the finishing touches on my pizza here. After I took it out of the oven, I topped it off with my ground oregano and parsley flakes, and I'm cutting up the pizza into 8 slices. I didn't do anything crazy, I just made the best pizza I could at home. Now let's see what everyone thinks of it.
Alright, everybody rated on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best.
9.
9? Honest opinions here.
This is a solid 8.5.
Okay. Sure?
I'm going to 9.
Okay. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Following the advice of successful pizza artisans and cooking at your own abilities should produce the best pizza. There's no such thing as a perfect pizza, remember that, but there's also certainly no such thing as a bad pizza. Also, using the chemistry behind pizza making, remember that as long as you cook your pizza, it's going to turn out good. Now, again, I could not have done this without Gemma Stafford, and it'll make it a lot easier for you guys if you go to biggerbolderbaking.com and look up her 15-minute pizza dough recipe. For anyone who's very unconfident or struggling, go back to the beginning of this video and follow it step by step. But for the rest of you, thank you for watching and happy pizza making.